India is growing.
Where India has become somewhere an alternative.
We say that in Mumbai it takes 14%.
How India?
Construction sector expanded by 8
India has all the
How
ingredients to be a top exporter.
How India, the business podcast for those who want the how of India.
Peter Cox, thanks for joining us on How India.
My pleasure.
Peter, as the convener of the Australia-India Chamber of Commerce National Industry Group for Real Estate and Infrastructure, you come with a unique perspective. I wonder if you could paint a picture of the types of organisations that join this group, because I imagine there's some diversity there.
Indeed, Steve, and we certainly believe there are four main categories. Category one would be those who have either a portfolio or at least a single property investment. So they tend to be, if you like, at the top of the tree or the food chain. Moving along the food chain, we look at building construction companies, subcontractors. So in other words, those who build the physical facilities that become part of the real estate investment. The third category are people like myself who are typically the professional advisors, be they designers such as architects, engineers, management consultants, which is closer to my own background. So they're the next group. The final group I've classify as being technology companies. So these are technology companies that support the real estate, the property industry. And the buzzword that is applied to that fourth group is prop tech.
I haven't come across that one before.
Yeah.
I want to take a trip back in time, though, back to the year 2000, because back then you made a bold move venturing into India when most of the world was fixated on, well, let's say, Singapore, Hong Kong, Middle East. China wasn't even on the radar for many people. What was it that sparked your interest in India? What did you see that maybe others weren't seeing?
At that time, we certainly reached a kind of maturity with the consulting business that I was associated with, and we felt that we were starting to hit a glass ceiling in terms of market growth potential within our Australian market. It was a niche consultancy, I would say. So we were serving very specific sectors, and that just meant the challenges were even greater. And so about that time, we started to think, well, we need a growth market. We need another market that would balance out our mature market, and one that would certainly enable us to grow. Hopefully we could generate some profits. And so we started looking around. We'd done a little bit of work in parts of Southeast Asia as part of industry consortia. And indeed, we went to India around about that time, the year 2000, for the first time. And so that's the background.
Did you just throw a dart on a map, or was there something particular about India that attracted your interest?
Yeah, good question. No, it was as often the case, it was opportunism. So we had the consortia that my company was part of. Were looking, as I said, at a few different markets, but then we were drawn into India by some specific invitations to provide services. And so that's where it started.
If I remember some of the background correctly, that consortia, there were 6 companies involved. You ended up being the only one to invest in a subsidiary there, though. So what set you apart on that topic?
I guess you'd probably need to interview the other 5 to get the full answer, Steve. So I can only give you my assumption on that. But So the other five were probably larger organisations. So they were already in other markets. Perhaps they didn't share that same driver that I outlined a few minutes ago behind why we went to India initially. Perhaps it was just fortunate that some of the people we met were particularly encouraging. They singled us out from the group of 6 companies and said, we think there are good reasons why you should come here. And more particularly, one of the corporates said, come to India and I'll help you set up within my office. So that was fairly persuasive.
I bet it is, or was. I've heard it said that you've been trying to drag other companies to India kicking and screaming, which is quite an image. What's behind the reluctance that you're seeing with some Australian businesses, and how do you go about trying to change their minds?
Well, look, I don't really believe I can change their minds, Steve, but I can certainly show them the opportunity to develop a roadmap, if you like, with them. If you like, the how-to in keeping with the theme, I think, of this series. So I think that's the way. Typically, I take other companies, the directors of other companies, to meet potential clients, meet potential staff. We typically set up some dummy interviews with potential recruits in key positions. Show them suppliers and partners and so on. So all designed to give them comfort and also to reduce some of those doubts that people naturally have.
And you were dead right, but to think that how-to is really the DNA of this particular podcast. But I would like just to just pull back a layer there on the reluctance that some Australian companies have.
Yep.
What are some of the common things they say when pushing back, when expressing that they have some reticence about this?
Yes. I've encountered a few. So look, I guess the most recurrent ones are to do with concerns about corruption, concerns about safety, personal safety, concerns about being able to extract profits from India. And so they're probably the key. And I can understand, obviously, there's a lot of popular opinion about those subjects. I've heard it expressed many times.
Let's shift focus now to foreign direct investment in India. It's a major driver of growth there. There are multinationals from the USA, UK, Germany, France, Singapore, China, Japan, you name it, they're leading the charge. Australia, though, lagging behind, with perhaps the notable exception of Macquarie Bank. What's your take on this? Why aren't we seeing more Australian involvement with foreign direct investment?
Steve, I've been puzzling that question for 20 odd years. Well, look, I think it's partly that background, those doubts that I mentioned a minute ago. There was quite a lot of trade mission activity, perhaps 5-10 years ago. And I think I observed, because I attended a lot of them, even though I knew the market. Being a team player, I wanted to support and encourage other Australian companies. Yes, so I think it's those sorts of doubts that were the underlying reason.
But they're thrown into some sort of shadow when we consider that we've got the US, UK, Germany, France, Singapore, etc. If it's good enough for them, why is it not good enough for an Australian company?
Again, I can't give you an absolute answer. I think we do have an expectation that the market should be, the red carpet should be rolled out. We should only need to make one visit and we can come away with a bag full of contracts. And clearly that doesn't happen in any market, let alone India. Interesting, I took one group from Australia late last year on an exploratory mission, and we came away from 1 week with them meeting clients, interviewing people, as I said a minute ago, and generally getting a feel for the market. We came away after 1 week with 4 tangible opportunities for them. There will need to be more follow-up visits and there'll need to be more work on their part, but it certainly reinforced my view that a lot of those doubts aren't supported by my own experience and observations of the kind I mentioned.
Yeah. I've heard some pretty staggering numbers about real estate growth in India. There are estimates of 25% year-on-year growth, which is impressive by any standard. Do you think this is an area Australian investors should be paying some more attention to?
For sure. And of course, Steve, I'm biased, but having just attended the annual Real Estate Developers Congress, which was held in Sydney this year for first time ever. So these are the peak body covering real estate developers across India. Over 1,000 of them were in Sydney, and what I learned was that their expectation is that the market will grow from its current size of about $1/3 trillion US, $1/3 trillion, to just over $1 trillion within 5 years. So by 2029, $1 trillion, which I think will put it in certainly third spot, if not higher, on the world rankings.
Really hard for my brain to get it to wrap around numbers like this.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'll give you a sense in that 1/3, the current market, 1/3 $1 trillion, is supporting a cohort that is the whole ecosystem of construction of real estate in India is supporting 70 million jobs. 70. So what's that? 3 times the size of Australia's total population is represented purely by people supported by the real estate and construction industry. So you can imagine that'll grow by a factor of 3 over the coming 5 years. So yes, you're 25%, and I've heard the same figure mentioned, and I don't doubt it.
I want to just go back to foreign direct investment for one more question, because there are some restrictions in India, but it's not as limiting as in other countries. I mean, unlike China, companies can actually own property outright in India. Can you clarify this for us?
Well, look, it's not my area of expertise, I should say from the outset. There are certainly plenty of some of the well-known business advisors in our country who could give a more definitive answer, but in my own experience, there is no restriction. Sure, there is certainly scrutiny. There are foreign direct investment rules. You need to report any inward foreign exchange movement. It all needs to be reported, but I've never experienced a problem in either direction.
My understanding is also that wholly owned subsidiaries and joint ventures can own commercial and residential property in India, but India tends to favour larger corporations. Is there any more light you can throw on that aspect of the question? Are there been particular companies that are making significant investments in Indian real estate and infrastructure that you've seen that might give us a handle?
Yeah. Well, look, I can speak from my own experience. It was certainly possible for me through my own company to invest in a property in India, which we use for staff accommodation. So that, is quite open. It must be a locally registered business, of course. But yes, you're right in your reference to the government is certainly wanting to protect the local consumer, so they don't want individuals to come and acquire, or for that matter, even become small-time developers and take away opportunities for employment from the local community. So, I get that. So therefore, they're more likely to welcome larger corporations who want to either develop commercial space or large apartment type buildings.
I'm just curious about some of the projects you're currently involved with, both through the AICC but also your own business. Can just, as we come close to an end of our chat, can you just give us a glimpse into what you're working on at the moment?
Yes. Well, it's I'm very proud that the latest venture that I'm involved with, again, is a small consultancy. We started from zero just short of 3 years ago, and in the 3 years we've managed to build a team now of more than 60 in people. We have projects in scale ranging up to the largest multi-story high-rise residential, some of the large commercial developments. I think last time I looked, we were working on about 2 million square metres of commercial real estate projects and almost the same amount, 2 million square metres of residential. So in a very short space of time, we've managed to get that point of traction, recognition of a new brand, because we were a new brand in the market. And so I guess that encourages me to encourage others to do likewise.
I must say, hearing stories like that, and of course you're employing 60, so not quite the 70 million, but you're chipping away. To hear that and not have your interest piqued, I'd have to question whether you have a pulse or not. It's just really fascinating. So just look, in closing, if there's someone listening in, intrigued by the opportunities in India, wants to learn more, are they able to reach out and connect with you in some way?
Yes, Steve, sure. I'm, as you've probably picked up from this conversation, I'm very passionate about the opportunity. I'd welcome the opportunity to share my knowledge, and so I can only encourage any listeners who have an interest to contact the Chamber, and the Chamber will put them onto me. Always happy to have a chat and take it from there.
And all those contact details will be in the show notes. Peter Cox, thank you for being part of How India.
My pleasure.